Hello Raven, my apologies for the delay in getting back to you with regard to your needles and this thread, but I've been absolutely strapped at this end. Finally got a chance to sit down, have a look at your thread, your needles and your stitching. Now I've had a look at this sample piece. From this I can tell that you're using 8 stitches to an inch on your pricking iron, and you're using a thread that looks like 0.8. It looks like polyester, it's unwaxed, doesn't look that different to the waxed tiger thread that I'm using, but it's softer. You can tell the strength there. You can't, you're going to cut your fingers before you can pull that apart. So it's fairly strong. Why it's fraying on you, I don't know. Now you sent me the needles, and again the needles that you sent are massive, and it looks like what you bought are the John James 2.0, and what you need are the John James 002. Now you buy these over here as number 2s. I'm not entirely sure how they've done it, but let's see if the camera will pick it up. And you want the 002, not the 20, to show you the difference in the size. Let's find one of the small ones. Well, let's find a bit of black leather and put them both together. Will that pick it up? You see the size of that? Not very well, to be fair. What about on a piece of brown leather? You can see the different size. The needle you sent me is far thicker and much longer, and that's going to have an effect because you're trying to stitch in quite a small hole. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to do exactly what you've done. So I'm going to get a piece of leather, I'm going to get pricking iron, 8 stitches to an inch. In fact, I'll do it from this side and I can reuse it over and over again. So put that in the clamp, and let's use a couple of your absolutely massive. What I am going to do first, and if you continue using this thread I suggest you do the same, is give it a wax. Now you've obviously shown me a picture of your thread fraying quite badly, and I'm not entirely sure why that's happening, and you've not said. So if I'm doing anything different that you're doing, let me know. Now we'll start at the beginning. We're going to thread the needle, and then we're going to put the needle back through the thread. In fact, I'll tell you what, let's just zoom in a little bit, because, and let's lift that up slightly. Okay, so we've threaded the needle, and then we're going to put the needle back through the thread. That's it. That's done. No knots, nothing. Do exactly the same. And this one, just cut that at a bit of an angle, give the thread a point, and it goes through the needle much easier, and then put the needle back through itself. These needles are absolutely massive. Right, we've got an awl, we've got a pair of needles, so we'll start off, open the hole up, put the first needle through, centre the thread, that's Let's have a go at stitching and see what happens. Just tighten this up. The old clam's getting baggy over the years. So I've stuck a bolt through it just to tighten it up. Okay. So again, now I'm doing, hopefully, nothing different to what you're doing. I've used a pricky 9/8 stitches to 1 inch. I'm using your 2-0 needles and the 0.8 nylon thread you sent me. And it's looking alright. I can't see any reason your thread would be ripping itself apart at the needle, unless you're not using an awl like this to open up the hole first, because it's a big needle. Even with this awl, this needle's struggling to go through that hole. If that's the case and this thread isn't waxed, it's catching on this hole, so that could be why it's beginning to do that. But certainly just having a quick look at a couple of lines of stitching, well, that's actually come out quite tidy. Let that zoom in, or focus rather. It's a bit tight, it's a heavy thread, but it looks alright. I think I'll be inclined to just flatten it down ever so slightly. No, not a problem. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is we'll just extend those pricky 9 holes that we've made a little further. Stick that back in there. And what I'm going to do is cut these needles off. They are huge. So we can save those for when we're doing blanket stitching or making a quilt, or if somebody asks you to stitch the sail of a ship. Now these are the John James number 2s. They're sold as number 2s over here. On the website for the Americans it's 002. So again, just to make it easier, kind of cut that thread off at a very, very slight angle. Still doesn't like it. So run the edge of the thread over the wax. Just wax up the edge of it. Give it a pull. Flatten it all down. And that'll go through the eye of the needle. And again, put the needle back through the thread, creating that loop. Pull it back, lock it off. Let's do exactly the same with the other side. Bit of wax, taper it off. Different needle. That'll do. Tell you what, you get old, your eyes go. And I'm wearing glasses. Obviously not strong enough. The nice thing about the Tiger Thread coming wax is you don't need to mess about with this, and it's an absolute doddle to thread that wax as well. With my aging eyes, I'm happy with that. Right, so I'm using smaller needles, so I'm going to drop down the awl size, and I've hidden the other awl that I want. So just bear with me while I hunt around the desk. Right, I'll carry on with this one because I've very hidden it. No idea, super hidden. Okay. Open up the hole slightly. So, your thread's fine. Your pricking iron is fine. Your 8 stitches to an inch. It's lovely. Your thread suits your holes very nicely. The only issue is your needles. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put some needles in the post. If you can order some at the same time from somewhere over there, then ideal, they'll probably get to you far quicker. But I shall stick some thread and some needles in the post here and be happy in the knowledge that you bought a good pricking iron and a good thread. I like the thread, stitch is nice. I'd like it pre-waxed, but a block of beeswax will cost you nothing. So have a look at that. Look at that, absolutely fine. Nice and tight. Come on, focus. There we are. You see, with the smaller needles, it's just a little neater. It's come out really nice on the back as well. Right, there you go. Problem solved. I would suggest that your thread has been fraying at the point of the needle because the needles are so big and your awl isn't big enough. So it's not, plus it's not waxed, so as it goes through the hole in the leather, it's creating a huge amount of friction and it's wearing the leather and it's breaking threads, which is causing it to ruck up, gather, and then all of a sudden you've got a useless piece of thread. A little bit of wax will work with big needles. You'd be better off with the smaller needles, and I'll send you some of those as well. But for the time being, 002 John James, not 20. Silly bloody idea giving both a number 2, but one's considerably larger than the other. And in fact, now I've zoomed in on the camera, I'm just going to show you those 2 needles again. I'll stick my finger in the middle. There we are. Look, you can see the length and you can see the thickness. This is the needle you sent me. This is the 20, and this is the John James number 2, which is also called the 002. So that's the one that I'm sending you. Alright, I hope that helps, Raven. Take care.